What's up, everyone? Stevie B here, Dynasty Life Fantasy Football, and today bringing you 8 Dynasty wide receivers that you can stash on your bench for roughly around second round picks. So just adding to that video from before, gave you 12 guys worth really third, fourth, or waiver wire pickups. Now we're getting into some guys that you can purchase for a second round pick that some guys might have been off of or might be fed up on. So stay tuned for the video, guys. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Make sure you comment below. Wandale Robinson, 22 years old, was a rookie, started really coming along, and then got injured. So tore his ACL, out for the season. The guy that you should be able to get with a second round pick. I have no problem spending a mid to late second round pick and taking a chance on Wandale Robinson, especially the way it looks like they want to use him. So could be great for a PPR. So that's a guy that I am looking to get some shares of if you can, especially now that he's injured. Most of the time, these injured guys you can get for a little bit cheaper. Maybe you can get him for a third, and something, or a fourth and something. Maybe you don't have to spend a second, but I'm okay with spending a second and going out and getting Wandale Robinson. Let me get some of these other guys over here and grabbing him. But all right, after Wandale Robinson, let's go to the next guy, another hurt guy. Let's do Rashard Bateman, guy who you can try and stash. Didn't do great. We don't know what Lamar Jackson's situation is. Guy that you might be able to get for rather cheap. Um, Again, I'm trying to throw a third out there, but you might have to spend a second. This is a guy that was a first round pick, dealing with injuries again, and then of course Lamar Jackson was dealing with injuries as well. But the guy can play. Really good profile coming out. So a guy that I'm okay taking the chance on and throwing a mid to late second round pick out there if I need to, instead of making a pick, in the draft. So you see what happens there. Next one we got is going to be Elijah Moore, guys. Elijah Moore, New York Jets. You've got, but yeah, so Elijah Moore is a guy that was really good coming out, good profile coming out, and unfortunately they went out and drafted Garrett Wilson as well. But that doesn't mean that he can't be productive. So if they can get a QB that can throw the ball a little bit, Elijah Moore can be a decent, good wide receiver there. So after Elijah Moore, we've got another Moore. We're going to go with Rondell Moore on the Arizona Cardinals, a guy that was injured on IR. So again, another guy that you could probably get for relatively cheap. Going into next year, I'm not sure if they keep D Hop. I'm really not sure if they keep D Hop. There's rumblings that D Hop could be on the move. So if he is, now you've got Marquise Brown, Rondell Moore, and Greg Dortch there. So whether they draft somebody or sign somebody in free agency, it's possible. But Rondell Moore is a guy that's going to be, in the slot, going to be hogging up those targets in the slot. So, if you can get your hands on Rondell Moore for relatively cheap, again, a mid to late second. I don't know if I want to give up an early second. It's really cutting it close. I don't know if I'm that confident in him to give up that. I'd rather probably just take my chances on, somebody else in that second round, early second round. So yeah, Rondo Moore is a guy that I would be interested in as well. Again, that you can get for probably relatively cheap. Uh, Next guy we're going to go after is going to be Michael Gallup on the Cowboys. He came back from injury, so he didn't look amazingly great, but Dak finally got back into form. Dak was hurt also in the beginning of the season, so there was a lot. There was a lot that happened with Dallas. But Gallup is a guy that if they don't go out and get a wide receiver in free agency or draft one, where Gallup could kind of come back, have that little comeback season next year. So, Gallup is a guy that I'm willing to spend a second on, um, maybe even less. Again, I'm starting with a third. Guys, always start low and then work your way up in the negotiation process. Never start too high, or if you could give up a piece and a low pick, then you can also do that. But yeah, Michael Gallup's another guy that we are looking at. So far we went over for some of these second round pick guys that you might have to spend that second round pick on. Wandale Robinson, Rashard Bateman, Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore, and Michael Gallup. But my next guy up here is going to be John Mechie. Okay. John Mechie, obviously unfortunate with the cancer. It looks like he is, everything is going well. It looks like he's doing a lot better. I'm not high on Moore. I feel like, yeah, Hollywood is definitely a target hog, man. He he, he definitely is, and I do like Hollywood, but they do love them slot receivers too. So if you need to take a chance, and listen, not all these guys are going to be everybody's cup of tea. These are just guys that can you know, possibly break out or give you something at least where they're still going to have value and you can trade them. They're not just going to lose value all of a sudden. Yeah, Calvin Austin, absolutely. Mechie is an awesome stash. Not many people are thinking about him right now. Obviously, he's not playing. So another guy that you could possibly get cheap. Now, you the guy that has Mechie probably spent a second on him, so you might have to spend a second. But again, start with a third or start with something else because he's a guy that scored no fantasy points, did nothing for that GM and that manager. He might just be fed up or ready to just start over already. So and again, depending if they sign somebody in free agency or if they draft somebody, you're looking at John Mechie, Nico Collins, and I don't think they go into the season with Brandon Cooks. I really do think he gets traded. But again, John Mechie is going to have a role coming. It could be a hot take. Some people might not agree with me here, but I believe in the talent, and I'm hoping that the coaching staff uh, finally gets him a lot more play and going into next year. But it's gonna be Sky Moore. Sky Moore is a guy I was very high on coming in to the draft last year. He's a very, very polished route runner. Steve Smith actually just did a little segment on Sky Moore talking about Sky Moore and his route running. But next year going in, most likely there's no Juju. I really doubt that they re-signed Juju. So next year you've got MVS, who they could get out on MVS too, but you've got possibly MVS, Sky Moore, and Tony, and whoever else they sign in free agency, or if they bring in anybody through the draft. So Sky Moore is a sneaky guy. Listen, it's a complicated offense that they're in. Very complicated offense that they're in. They kind of set him up for failure with the whole punt return thing. The guy's never returned a punt in his life, and they put him on NFL punt return, and he fumbled the ball. And I'm sure that has put him in the doghouse and has something to do with why he's not playing. But Andy Reid even came out and said, hey, that's my fault. We set him up for failure. We should have never had him out there on punt return. But we saw in the games that he did play or did get a lot of burn, he had some clutch catches, some really good catches. He came back to the football. I think Mahomes was rolling out on a couple plays. He was able to find Sky Moore. He was able to get open. So Sky Moore is a guy that I do like and I'm willing to take the chance on. He's a guy that coming into this year, you just couldn't expect him to go right in and just start killing, not with all the guys that they had already. So I just think it's going to take a little bit more time for Sky Moore. So I'm okay with holding Sky Moore or going to spend a second on him to take that chance. So you might actually have to spend the late first. You really might actually have to spend the late first, but there are people that are forgetting about him. There are people that are doubting him now, especially because he did come back from injury. Uh, but it's going to be Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams is a guy that, fantasy managers might be just upset with. He was injured. Now he came back. He's barely involved. You got St. Brown killing it. You got Chark killing it. Did they re-sign Chark? You know, um, and again, it all depends on the GM. There may be the GM might just love Jameson Williams and might be willing to hold, but trust me, there are people out there that are not patient and that are willing to just start over or get off. And, Jameson Williams, we saw him catch that one touchdown, hasn't done anything since. So, if you can go out and grab Jameson Williams for a second round pick, that would be awesome. You might have to give up a late first, which I don't know if I necessarily want to do. But if you do really do believe in JMO, then go out and get him. I think that him and Amon Ra are great because they complement each other. They're two very different receivers. Amon Ra is going to be that slot underneath guy. JMO's going to open it up and get downfield with his speed. So I think they're perfect, and I think they complement each other. Um, I do think St. Brown is going to be the better fantasy wide receiver. but I think Jameson Williams still has a chance to be, a top 24 wide receiver at the least, for JAMO. So if you can get him for cheap,